All right, good
All
morning.
right.
Welcome
Good
to
morning.
Inside the Huddle.
Buenos
We are
dias.
live, we're recording, and we have by far the most important people already on the call.
That's right.
So today, Steve, you brought up a really interesting topic that we want to dive into. Why don't you share that with everybody?
Well, it just has to do with trying to lay the foundation for what I think is going to be a shift at some point. I mean, been reading and reviewing a lot of information, and certainly our market is still holding up pretty strong. But if you talk to some people in North County, they'll say, "Oh, it's still going like crazy." You talk to some folks downtown, they say it's starting to tighten up. You talk to people on East County, it's somewhere in between, right? So there's a
Well, when
lot
you
of
say a
data.
shift, what are
Yeah.
you referring to when you say a shift?
Well, for me, it's markets never truly hold up at any particular place for any length of time, right? So markets can usually be fairly steady. It looks like a up and down, up and down, up and down, like a stress test. But what we experienced about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, was basically a hockey stick. So that was a shift. The market pivoted very quickly because there was high demand for houses, and there wasn't a lot of houses on the market. And of course, we've seen a run on price. And what we're now experiencing is prices are continuing to go up, but inventory is not. It's starting to pick up with the rising prices, but inventory hasn't been in full supply. And so, if you look at the amount of volume of real estate being sold, it's actually not. It's on par, if not trailing slightly behind last year. But you wouldn't know that because all we're talking about are these great gains in price and house values and appreciation. So for me, a shift will come when either interest rates start to tick up, or the banks. And one of the concerns is the banks are beginning to tighten up some of their lending. And there's a lot to get into there, but what I thought would be a good idea was to just try to prepare our agents with having a conversation when they go out to listing appointments, so that they're beginning to prepare sellers for what might be a shift when it happens. And if they don't have that conversation, Sean, I'm afraid the market will run them over, and they're going to look like they're underperforming with their client.
So I agree, and that's what today it's about. How to discuss, it's how to manage expectations, right? But I also want to be careful. We have a lot of people, certainly in the press, I don't know how many agents, who see the prices going up and the demand where it is, and draw a parallel to 2008.
Right.
Meaning that they're, what's that?
No, it's not 2008. The fundamentals are completely different. Yeah.
They're completely different.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, when you're saying shift, I take it to mean we're going to see time on market expand. We're going to see the increase in prices, the rate of increase slow down. Would that be fair?
Yeah. And in some markets, maybe not here in our part of the world, because this goes back to what I was talking about at my coach's corner on Friday. When people use the word market, there is no market. There is no real estate market. There are just ecosystems of real estate. So each real estate market has its own economics. It has its own ecosystem. And so we might not see a decline in prices as readily as another community, right? We just might see a drop in pace or a drop in velocity. But some markets will experience some price contraction as the market shifts. If you have more property going to market and there aren't enough buyers for those homes, then of course price takes a hit. That's a natural effect of that. But what we have to be monitoring here is what's impacting each one of our microclimates. Like North County is going to be different than downtown. Downtown may be different than East County, and these are the things we have to be paying attention to. Right.
Location and price point.
Yeah.
Different price points. So that brings us to one of the things, and you and I talked, off camera about this. Economically, there's still some things going on that are very, very strong for the real estate market, and that will continue for upwards of 2 years. It would be my best guess, certainly, and that's what some of the experts say. And I think what we want is to have the agents prepared so that they look good when they explain to a client things are going to slow down a bit right now. We've got to be prepared. We haven't gotten 10 offers in 5 days. What's wrong with you? We want to avoid that conversation. But people worried about the overall market, let's set that baseline first. You have the first thing that I don't know how many people are aware of this, but all of us should be. The housing industry, on average, builds about 1.5 million homes a year. Since the late 50s, year in and year out, 1.5 million homes, right up until 2008. 2008 wiped out all the new home builders.
Yep.
It was a crushing blow for them. They came back and they're averaging 800 to 900,000 homes a year since then. That means for a decade, we've been 600 to 700,000 homes a year short. If you want to know why we're going through what we're going through, that's the number one cause. We're 6-7 million homes short of what we need. That's not a problem that's going to go away anytime soon.
No.
You'd agree?
Well, I agree. And to compound things or make matters worse in some respects, at least in our part of the world, we seem to fall short of the type of product that is necessary to keep our velocity at a fever pitch. We need more density product in San Diego, Southern California for that matter, and there's just not enough of it. And so that creates a problem, particularly in light of the fact that millennials right now, they are going to be the largest emerging segment of buyers entering, and they are right now entering the real estate acquisition market. So, and
largest in history, right?
Largest in history. You're going to have the highest transfer of wealth in history. So they'll be armed as
why?
They get those inheritance monies to make acquisitions or to purchase real estate, and they're just now beginning to form their families. I mean, right now the millennials are in that family formation phase, and so housing's really important.
Wait! Don't move ahead. You glossed over. You said the largest transfer of wealth in history.
Right.
Now that's not the millennials necessarily. Who is that?
It's their parents.
It's the baby boomers, right?
It's the boomers, right? Yeah.
Who are now, this is part of our problem again, too. Yes, they are going to be selling their properties at a rate we've never seen before because most people nowadays are property rich and cash poor. Very few are going to retire in their home that has all that. Here's another little statistic while we're doing kind of a stats. Over 50% of all homeowners in this nation own their home free and clear.
Yeah.
So the danger that people feel does not exist. It's not like 2008 at all.
No.
But all those baby boomers selling their homes with all that equity, and here's another difficult part for us. What homes are they going after when they downsize? The same homes that you're talking about, Steve, that the millennials who are coming into their own are searching for.
Yeah, I've got some people texting me, Sean. Sorry, they're saying they can't find the link. So
yeah, unfortunately, everybody, the link got accidentally deleted by someone, and we had to recreate it. In the whenever you're looking for these things, you can find them in the what's it called? The San Diego Region Agent Office Events and Trainings Calendar, which all of you should have in your Compass Google calendar.
Yeah.
We apologize for the inconvenience.
Yeah.
So you've got boomers selling their homes and downsizing into smaller homes at the same time that the largest generation ever, millennials, are coming in to buy those very same homes.
Right.
All with a backdrop of 6-7 million homes that we don't have that we should have.
So when we talk about these stats, I think what's interesting to hear you speak, like I'm just sitting here observing as I'm slightly distracted, but I'm listening to what you're saying. And it never gets past me that when I perceive someone to have command of a subject, they get my attention. And I think that it's so important when you're going to handle an objection or you're going to lay the foundation of educating your clients for a potential shift that you know some of these numbers, that you're able to speak intelligently about what your concerns might be. And your concerns right now may be unwarranted in the sense that we're not sensing like our market shifting so much so that we're going to have a negative run here in the foreseeable future. None of us, neither you are saying that, Sean.
Right.
We don't feel that way. I don't feel that way, and I know you don't feel that way. But in these moments when we have these I call them like air bubbles in the line. If we don't speak about what might happen, and then we're held accountable, our agents are held accountable to a really high standard that creates friction in the relationship with their client. And so I just can't stress enough that listening to getting your arms around some of these stats and remaining optimistic. Like, you can be concerned and optimistic about your situation. If you don't induce reality where little or none exist for your client, well, then they're just going to hold you to the standard that they see around them. And so if every home in the last 6 months has been selling in 5 days, and God forbid it takes you 21, that's going to create friction. And so, like, and I want to share this I want to ask you a question, Sean, because on Friday, a comment was made in my coach's corner that in preparing dialogues or using dialogues, a lot of agents feel like, well, I don't want to sell anybody. Like, I feel like scripts are selling, and I don't want to lead the witness here. But to me, every time we open our mouths in our lives, 80% of the time, it's some form of selling. I'm trying to convince my wife where I want to go. I'm trying to convince her what I like for dinner. She's asking me the same kind of questions. And so we're always selling. It's just what we believe helps us in what we say, not what we dream of. It's what we believe. So this is why knowing numbers is so important. So, Sean, how do you get around that with your agents when it comes to the concern about not wanting to go down this road of even bringing up anything that might be perceived as slightly negative? When if they don't, it could be disastrous if they don't.
We have to get rid of that kind of thinking. The idea that we're going to ignore something we perceive as a negative and that we're going to be helpful to our clients is antithetical. It makes no sense. Our job is to prepare them and manage their expectations. It's like when we do a pre-listing interview and say, have you thought about selling by yourself? Oh, no, I never want to ask that. I don't want to give them the idea. You're not giving them an idea they don't already have. You need to be prepared on countering that if they're seriously thinking about it. We can't shy away from questions and think we're going to lead them into some negative place.
Right.
And right now this is what it is managing expectations, because the sellers have seen exactly what you said, homes selling in 5 days for 50,000 over list. And that's been going on now for months. Okay, well, my turn, I want that. Well, that's not happening right now. That's slowing down some. And we have to let them know ahead of time what a normal market looks like, and the fact that we have a lot of buyer fatigue right now. We have a lot of people on vacation, and that there's nothing wrong. We just can't price your home 25,000 over the last one because we think it's still a runaway train. It's not a negative. It doesn't mean we're going down. It just means it's not a runaway train anymore, at least right now. We'll have to see in September when people come back from vacation what happens. But definitely what you're saying, manage the expectation.
Right. And I think when you were out there, because you're a big successful agent, and I certainly never achieved the heights of success you and your team have had, and as a coach, where do you like to induce this reality? Is it something that you do after you get the listing, like the seller say, I want to go with you, and say, hey, look, appreciate that. And now that we've come to a meeting of the minds as to how we're going to operate with one another, I'd like to go over expectations. I mean, do you have a conversation like that? Or do you coach your agents to have an expectations conversation?
And let me back you up. The amazing agents on my team are the ones who created the success. And my wife, who leads the team, I'm the cheerleader. I'm the coach. I get to be honored to be a part of it. That conversation happens in the initial buyer consultation. It happens in the listing presentation. I don't want to wait. This is what you said before about showing a level of expertise is one of the key things we can do to differentiate ourselves. So this discussion, whether it's difficult or not, reflects a level of expertise that you have as an agent that most agents don't. And clients appreciate that. You don't want to work with a client who doesn't want to know the truth. That's going to be a problem listing and a problem escrow all the way through it.
Right.
Absolutely. So you've got you brought up dialogues before, and I'm in agreement with you. Yes, we're always in sales. I mean, we are. That's when and everyone not only is in sales, everyone speaks in scripts. When you go to the store and the person there says, how can I help you? And you say, just looking, that's not true. That's a script. Everyone speaks in scripts for the most part. And the big advantage to having certain dialogue, like especially this one, having it down, is that you don't have to think about what you're going to say when you're talking to your client. Most of us spend our time thinking about what we're going to say next instead of actually listening to the other person. And if you sit down with a client and you already know what you're going to say and you can actively listen and you can listen between the lines, that's going to bring a level of of attention and authenticity that they're also not used to, which will also differentiate. It's paramount to know what you're going to talk about and how you're going to talk about it
Right.
for that reason alone.
Every time I went on a listing, Sean, at the end when I had confirmation of the listing, me and they agreed to work with me. I would, of course, celebrate that in my own way with them. But then I'd say, what I'd like to talk about now, Sean, is making sure we have an open line of communication, because I believe conflict arises when expectations differ. And so what I'd like to do is just ask you a couple of focusing questions about how we can make sure that line always stays open. But more importantly, how does somebody, well, let me back up, because I'm going down the wrong path here on the expectations. I was going to talk about just setting expectations in general, but as it relates to conflict, I would say, if I see something, Sean, that's preventing your house from selling, or I see an action that we may be taking or that you may be taking that may be preventing us from the best possible outcome, how do you want me to approach you? Meaning that on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 I'm being as honest as I can be, where I run the risk of hurting your feelings, and 1, I'm fibbing to you. On that scale, how would you like me to be?
That's good.
And so to me, they would say, well, I want you to, I've never, by the way, never had a seller ever say anything but a 10. And so before you get into what you want to talk about, you'd say, look, and because I believe the same is true for you, meaning that if you ever see something that I'm doing or that you wish I was doing that may be preventing us from the best possible outcome or from being successful, on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd like you to be at 10 plus. Because one of the ways people lose with me, or one of the ways people win with me, I'll start there, is that when they're completely honest and transparent about any frustrations they have with me as their agent. And again, as I said a moment ago, conflict arises when expectations differ. If I don't know what's troubling you, then there's no way for me to course correct, and that only builds friction. So if you ever see anything that I'm doing or that my staff is doing that's preventing us from being successful, I want you to be as brutally honest as possible. I can take the feedback, trust me on that, right? So, and then you get into what I'd like to do now is just share with you, what are some of the concerns that you might have, going forward. They're going to share those with you, you validate them. And then this gives you the perfect opportunity to say, right now the market has just been, this is unprecedented. We've never seen anything turn like this. And we have this pandemic, everything locks down. The next thing it opens up, and it opens up like a rocket. And now we see signs that things might be starting to balance a little bit. Equilibrium may be settling, and that's a better way of saying shift or panicking them, right?
Right. I'd avoid shift right now.
Right. Equilibrium may be settling into the market. I mean, things are starting to balance out just ever so slightly. And so I just want to, put that out there, in that with people vacationing and getting out of town, we're beginning to see a slight, ever so slight, balancing of the market. Now, that doesn't mean that things are going to drop. It doesn't mean that things will continue where they are. It's just that I've got the football. I've got my eye on this. And if I see something that's going to negatively impact us, I want to be able to move quickly, because I believe as you're a professional, Sean, that when the market will move, if it does shift, this is where I bring it up, that it will happen relatively quickly. And I want to be on top of that for you, so that we do everything we can to get you top dollar for your home. Because, Sean, I know money is important to you. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So sorry for, blowing on.
That's the transition, though. You did it. It's great to have that conversation about honesty that allows you to transition right into, now let's have an honest look at what's going on in the market and what we can expect, what I see happening. And we have to know our numbers, like you said. I assume most of you are checking your hot sheets every morning. That works for so many different purposes. Like, I know that we've been averaging around 900 homes a week being sold, but right now, past 7 days, 815, something like that. So I can talk to him about that, not say a bunch or a little or a lot. I can use actual numbers,
right,
as well. He knows what the heck he's talking about. It's the same thing you can use with someone who says, I'm thinking I'd like to sell my home, but there's no inventory. I don't want to sell because there's nothing. Well, that's not quite true. I understand what you're saying, but 3,000 homes sold in the past month. It's not so much that there's not inventory, it's just that it's not there very long, which is why you need a really good agent like myself and my team. Knowing those numbers allows you to not sell people, because as you and I both said, you're never going to manipulate somebody into buying or
No,
selling a home.
no.
What you're doing is helping them get past their own fears, get over their own issues, so that they can see their way to making a good decision, which is, of course, hiring you to represent them. That's what we're doing.
And I think that the only reason I think most agents, and by the way, this goes for, even some of the most talented people in the industry, it is not I think you'd agree with me, Sean, it is not a natural condition of our species to confront or to be confrontational, right? That we avoid conflict. That's the way we've survived as human beings, right? We try to stay away from it. So our natural reflex is to not want to even try to broach these kind of subjects. Is always to remain positive. But if you don't induce reality where it may not exist, then I just feel like you're creating conflict with your client. And if you can do it in a high-minded way and you're educating them like you did by referencing hard numbers, not this is what I think is happening, this is what's happened. And I may or may not have a concern about it, but if I do, I want to be able to come to you without you feeling as if I'm being intellectually lazy, right?
Right.
So
You asked me to be honest with you, and I'm going to honor that at all times.
yeah.
There's a great word that I learned through coaching, because we don't like confrontation. So sometimes I'll be carefrontational with somebody. I care enough that I'm going to give you the honest truth on what's happening right now. I think we should change that word. Don't be confrontational, be carefrontational, because
Yes.
you do care about your client.
Right. I guess what we're talking about, to me, it's like the old saying goes, be ready so you don't have to get ready.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, to me.
The other conversation that goes, oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No. To me, that's what we're talking about here. Just it's just be ready so you don't have to get ready.
The other aspect of this that I highly recommend you have in these conversations, when you have a seller saying, well, I want to sell it for more, or I think the market's going to do this, it's going to continue being crazy. Ask them what's more important, price or interest rate in this transaction. Because you can show them and help them understand that their real fear, their real concern, not fear, should be interest rates. Interest rates have a huge impact on buying power, which in effect is a change in the price that they can offer their home at. At a $1 million home, a 1 point difference in interest rate drops the home's value. I haven't done the calculation yet, like $60,000. That's a lot. So we can push for 25,000 over what the market is telling us right now. But let me ask you, what's more important here? To get your home sold? What's more likely to happen? Interest rates are going to go up, or home prices are going to continue to go up at 20%. Because if we go up 1 point, you're going to lose $60,000 of your home, just like that. Get them focused on the things that matter.
Right.
And know their why. This always goes back to know their why. Know the emotional reason why they're selling a home. You can always help someone get around their misperceptions on market time and market price if you know at heart why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, in my listening clinic on Friday, we got into that first segment where we spent a lot of time, or I'd spent a lot of time, talking about trying to get their 3 big rocks. Understand that the seller has a lot that they want you to do for them. They have big expectations, but what will matter at the end of the day are 2 or 3 things that if you execute and achieve for them will make them your raving fan. But if you're not able to understand if your goal is to exceed expectations, which is the goal I think of every agent. If I'm going to be in a relationship with you, Sean, my goal isn't just to meet your expectations. If I want you to refer me, I have to exceed those expectations so you become a fan of mine,
right?
An evangelist of me. And the only way to exceed expectations is to ask questions that seek enlightenment of what those things are. And I think, again, I'm 33 years in the tooth doing this thing, and I'm still kind of surprised at just how, not that our people are a compass, but there are a lot of people in this business that still haven't learned that key fundamental, the key success component, tenet, whatever you will, that when you're asking more questions than you're providing answers to, right? Most of us show up, we want to just sell by telling people things.
Selling isn't selling.
Yeah. If you ask great questions, you're building, you're getting a lot of information, and you're building rapport that'll, once executed, it's going to get you raving fans for life.
I agree completely. And I know we're getting short on time. Here's what I was thinking, Steve. I want to give a 30-second summary of where I think things are going so we can approach that. And then I want you to come in and correct what you disagree with.
Okay.
If we have time, we'll see if there's any questions.
Yeah.
I see us continuing in a very inventory short market for at least 2 more years. So while the rate of increase may slow and market time might increase somewhat, overall, the market that we're seeing right now will continue for a good 2 years. We have no inventory, and we have this perfect storm of millennials and baby boomers going after the same homes. The 2 concerns I have are interest rates. Interest rates going up will definitely slow things, and affordability, which is very much, like you said, Steve, location driven. But there's an affordability cap in every location that will slow the market.
Agreed.
That's what I would be discussing with my client, that this is what I see happening. Would you change any of that or add to that?
No, I think the key, I agree with everything you said. And I think the indicator for affordability, where it's going to come quick and hit hard, is if interest rates begin to creep up, because that will impact what people can afford in terms of payment. It's not so much it's always been the case. It's not the cost of the home, it's not the sale price. It's what's the payment, and can they afford that within their income? And while home prices have gone up exponentially, incomes have not. They trailed behind. So interest rate adjustments here could really have a negative impact or compound the problem of affordability. So we've got to pay close attention to that. Yeah, I was going to say, so much so that if we were to see like a 1% increase over the next 6 months, you need to be leading this conversation with your sellers, particularly because days on market will increase. And if they have a timing need, you're going to need to reposition the home to take advantage of the buyers that are out there that can't afford the home. So
it wouldn't be a bad idea to share with them that in a normal market, time on market is out, 40 days in a normal market? I forget what the stat is, but it's well over a month. So you can say, I don't think we're getting to be close to a normal market, but we may not be in a 5-day market anymore. Just manage their expectation back out to a 30 days on market. That way, when you sell it in 2.5 weeks, you look great.
Right. Well, it's true, Sean. We had my next door neighbor sold her house at the beginning of the year in Q1, sold for an incredible price. Couldn't believe it, like big number. Fast forward about 4 months later, the neighbor 2 doors down, so the next door to the next door of my neighbor's home, it went on the market at the price just below the sales price of my neighbor's home, and it sat on the market for at about 14 days. My wife and I started thinking, well, maybe something's changing here. The market's shifting, or the cooling off, or maybe that the prices are beginning to stall out. Well, it sold for it sold for over asking in 32 days.
So there we go.
To your point, it still shows that the prices are not so much going to shift so much initially because of the lack of inventory, but what we will see is days on market increase as the buyer pool begins to contract ever so slightly. If interest rates were to go up, that's what you'd see. I don't think we've ever seen, by the way. I was doing to the best of my ability last night. I was on in Real Trends, Trend Graphics, looking for price contractions over the last 5 years, let's say in San Diego, and then going back historically the previous 5 years. And we've never really seen a price contraction of more than 3%.
No, and recessions don't cause price drops, right?
Yeah.
That you reminded me. I got to throw this out just to take care of our family. A lot of these kinds of statistics, and even more creative and useful ones, are found in those the reports they give us every month.
Yes.
If you haven't connected with them, first of all, I'm getting really good feedback about their actual escrows, but connect with them for these. The John Burns report is out of control good.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you haven't looked at that thing, oh my gosh, you're missing great stats, great interesting stats like U-Haul moves. Where are U-Haul trucks going? That you can sit down with a client and really demonstrate expertise.
And how could you use that, Sean? U-Haul moves. Well, if I'm going to market your home and I know that there's a migratory pattern in and out, you can shift from wherever people are going or coming from to, this is how I'm going to strategically market your home. I'm going to try to intercept that buyer. I'm going to market in those markets through social media, promote your home.
Exactly.
I mean, you can take it to so many different levels when you know stuff like that, when you know data like that. And like I said, people who we perceive to know more than us influence us. So if you're on you have a choice here. You could go into a listing presentation and be that person that has the command of the data and just influence people to a height that you know most of you do already, but I'm just saying. Or you could be someone who's going to show up and just try to tell them what your agenda is for the next hour. And there's a big difference. There's just a big difference in who's going to get that listing, I think, over time. So
absolutely. Know the data and then speak the way Steve said. Be able to direct this to absolute honesty.
Yeah.
And then know the data, and you're going to demonstrate expertise.
For sure.
All right, we're over time, so out of respect, I'm going to cancel the recording, stop recording, and then we'll stay on for a few minutes if anybody has any questions about this.
Yep.